What up, y'all? DCFAYGOGUY. It has been a little bit, but today we're going to be doing another ranking video. Like I said, it's been a while. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I just kind of didn't do one in a while. But I wanted to do this one primarily. This was the next one I wanted to do anyways, because I've already done ICP and Twisted. Respectfully, next up has to be Blaze, right? But also, having just gone to Hollow Bleed last weekend, Blaze was part of it. Watching Blaze up there kill it as, the headliner was just kind of like this, man, Blaze fucking is dope. And it reminded me that I've been wanting to do this video, so let's not fucking waste time. And let's just jump right into this. I had to make my own because there was one out there that was already made on Tier Maker here, but it was missing quite a bit of what I wanted to put on here. I know I've got one missing, and for whatever reason, when I was making this, I put the cover art for Rules to the Game featuring ABK, which was part of the Gang Rags Reborn re-release, if you will. There's different versions of Gang Rags on here as well that I have, and then others that I don't. There is also the Deluxe G edition of One Less G in the Hood. I left that off as well because it's essentially just the self-titled EP and One Less G in the Hood kind of combined. I know there are songs, there was Shit Talkers was left off, and then there was 3 new ones added. I didn't want to rank a whole album based on 3 songs. So I think most people kind of agree that the deluxe version of One Less G in the Hood was kind of an unnecessary release. I felt anyways. For one, it didn't even have all of the songs on there, and to me it just seemed better to just repress One Less G and the self-titled EP separately. That's just me. That's kind of how I always feel about it. But let's jump right the fuck into this, talking about the self-titled EP. This is an album that, for the longest time, I really only ever heard the version of the Deluxe G edition, essentially. So I always kind of connect it to One Less G in the Hood for that reason. I finally got a copy of the EP. I want to say I know it was after I started making YouTube videos. So I honestly had gone many years with never really hearing Shit Talkers, and I know people think that that's a really great track. It was kind of for me because I know a lot of people like diss tracks, and I'm not a big fan of diss tracks, and that was essentially a diss track to Eminem. So I'm going to rank it up here pretty much S tier because I feel like the self-titled EP and One Less G in the Hood, they're essentially kind of the same album, I feel like. Again, they were re-released together as the deluxe edition of One Less G in the Hood. So the self-titled is going to be up in the S tier, and of course One Less G in the Hood is going to be in the S tier. Classic Blaze. Everybody from Psychopathic is on there. It's just Blaze killing it. It's Blaze, it's his whole gimmick kind of brought to life, if you will. And I do think in some ways listening to the EP is kind of important. So, I don't know. I kind of go back and forth on whether I think the deluxe version was necessary or not. It's kind of nice listening to the two back to back, but I can honestly tell you I revisit One Less G more than I revisit the self-titled. So, jumping into Colton Grundy. And this one might be my first kind of controversial ranking of the video, but I'm going to drop it down into C tier. When I first listened to this, now, and I know I make my ranking videos kind of lengthy because I like to ramble on like a motherfucker about discovering the artist and giving kind of like that backstory. Blaze was somebody who I've told the story of how, I didn't discover Twisted and all that until 2007 after I read Behind the Paint and realized there was more to being a juggalo than just ICP, right? Blaze was someone who I was aware of because of Behind the Paint and because of Twisted, but it just wasn't something that I really gravitated to too much. Like I said, I picked up the deluxe version of One Less G in the Hood and Colton Grundy not until 2010. Blaze was kind of an artist that I sat on for a little bit because growing up in a small town, I was never really a big fan of gangsta rap at all. So I kind of knew for a while that Blaze was going to be something I was eventually going to dip my toes into, and it took a while. And for many many years, and even I would say to this day, respectfully, I've always said that Blaze is probably my least favorite artist on Psychopathic Records, and it's because of that. It's because of the gangster rap thing. But when I listen to Blaze, when I'm in the mood for Blaze, Blaze absolutely kills it. So Colton Grundy was an album I listened to in 2010, and for me, when I first listened to it, this album had a lot of skippers on it. Over time, it's definitely grown to where I can just kind of let it play in the background. But going into it, there was a lot of tracks that I really just kind of skipped. The standout ones for me are Days in My Neighborhood, Shotgun, Etched Out, fucking Climbing, stuff like that. But there was a lot that I did skip. Like, for whatever reason, for the longest time, I didn't like Hey Girl, or is it Hood Rats? No, Hood Rats is on the first one. It's on One Less G. There's a couple tracks on there that I just kind of skipped a lot. And it's taken many years and many listens to finally listen to it all the way through. I feel like I didn't talk a lot about One Less G. I guess there's just so many banging tracks on there from front to back. Obviously, Juggalo Anthem, Casket's great. Nasty, Maggot Face, Straight Outta Detroit. There's a lot of bangers on that album for sure. But yeah, Colton Grundy, I'm going to stick it in the C tier just because my first initial reaction to it was just not great. It's had to grow for me. So let's jump into Clockwork Gray. And this is another one that I know a lot of people really, really, really love. I would put it in the A tier. I do think it's a really solid release. It was kind of another one of those two where I felt like when I would listen to it, it starts off really strong and loses steam kind of quick. It has a lot of great tracks on there, like fucking Wishing Well, Escape Artist, which is, you know, kind of a staple, if you will, at his shows now. I do think it's a really good project, but admittedly, I do think it loses steam kind of halfway through. So for me, I wouldn't put it in the S tier because it does lose that steam. But it is banger. It is great. Absolutely fucking love Clockwork Gray. A lot more than Colton Grundy for sure. So jumping into Gang Rags. And this is going to be easily... And I like to do it like ranking best to worst. So I'm going to stick One Less G at the very tippy tip top. Gang Rags. So this is going to be probably easily the next hot take for a lot of people. I actually really liked Gang Rags when it first came out. Many people didn't. A lot of people were like, this they felt like the name of the album, the theme of the album, and the music of the album didn't really hit the mark. For me, it really did. I felt like it was some good Blaze. And it's really, that's what kind of really sucks is this album, Gang Rags, was entirely produced by Mikey Clark. So seeing a lot of people not happy with that was kind of a shocker. But I think that that might have been the problem. I think that Mikey Clark is better at not making those kind of beats, if that makes any sense. I feel like Mikey Clark wasn't the right guy to work with Blaze. I just don't, because I think Blaze needs to hold a certain style, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. I enjoyed it for what it was, but I do see a lot of people say that they don't like it. B&E is great. Fucking Dead Man Walking is great. Tokyo Spa at the end is absolutely great. I love that fucking track. Three Evil Wizards is the shit. And actually, the first time I watched, what was it? Which Harry Potter movie is it that comes right after Lord Voldemort comes back? Is that the order? Is that the Order of the Phoenix, where it starts off with the three wizards like flying through London and just causing havoc? When I first watched that movie, I immediately started hearing three evil wizards coming at you like so. Immediately in my head, that was what was like going on. So, great tracks all over fucking Gang Rags. I am so surprised that so many people dislike it, but I think the name Gang Rags gave them the impression it was going to be straight gangsta shit, gangsta rap beats, and it wasn't for them. And I could see their argument. I really could. So, Gang Rags extended cuts. I think it's like unmixed and unmastered. I went ahead and put this on here because this was supposed to be the original version of Gang Rags, for those who don't know the story. Originally, Blaze was working on an album called Last House on Dead Street. The tracks that are on this version of Gang Rags were those tracks, I believe. I think I got that story right. At one point, I guess Violent J had kind of like pulled Blaze aside and said he wanted to work on an album with him, and he wanted Mikey Clark to produce it. So they took all the songs that he already had and kind of scrapped them. I feel like I'm butchering this story really badly, but I remember something along those lines of Jay wanted to work with Blaze on an album. Blaze already had some fucking songs recorded, so they scrapped them, and then they came out with Gang Rags, which is the Gang Rags we got. And I think it was on the Gang Rags tour. Then they had this version of the album for sale, and it was supposed to be like the original version, Last House on Dead Street, essentially. So they just titled it Gang Rags Extended Cuts, and it was kind of like this, basically because it was during like the Gang Rags sessions is why they labeled it that. Which I feel like what they could have done and should have done is just like never put this out like they did. Let Blaze go back and finish them how he wanted, and then let one last House on Dead Street come out like it really would have initially. You know what I mean? But as far as the extended cuts and all that, I'm gonna put it down in D just because a lot of it's unmixed. It's not really mastered properly. A lot of the songs sound really good, but you can tell it's not a finished product. You're basically getting like the rough cuts of the album. So then from that, you have Gang Rags Reborn, which is all of the tracks from the extended cuts remixed and mastered over beats from 7. And this version of that album is absolutely fucking banging, and I would probably stick that in the top of the A tier. I do like it better than the regular version of Gang Rags. The beats are fucking great. It starts off with ghost bars, and you get that boom, 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 wah, 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 wah. That's terrible. I sound like the fucking seagull off of Little Mermaid with that one. But that beat kicks in, and it starts off so fucking great. And I love ghost bars a lot. There's a lot of great tracks on Gang Rags Reborn. I wish they would have taken all of the songs from the uncuts and brought them over. There was a few of them that they left off. And I feel like I should have pulled that up to like look at them, but there was 2 tracks on there that I remember really, really liking, and they didn't put them on this. Give Them What They Want is a really banging track. I think both versions of Give Them What They Want is really good, but I like what 7 did with the beat here on Gang Rags Reborn. So I'm going to put that at the top of the A tier. Again, I don't know if that's controversial or not, or if that's a hot take, but I really like Gang Rags Reborn. And for those who don't know, Gang Rags Reborn was actually the very first album released on Magic Ninja Entertainment. That was one of the first albums they had gotten the rights for from doing the Dark Lotus album. That might have been, it might not have been from doing Dark Lotus. That might have actually been from doing The Gathering in 2013. I don't know. I don't know the logistics of how they acquired it. And I'm not going to get into that topic because people like to fucking bicker about it. And I'm just not going to. I'm also going to adjust me because I feel like I'm leaning over too much. What the fuck is going on here? There we go. Make me a little bit bigger there. But yeah. So it was the first album that was released through Magic Ninja Entertainment. It was kind of their way of like taking their homie and be like propping him up and letting him be the first proper release from Magic Ninja Entertainment. So jumping into Casket Factory, and actually at Hollowbleed, the homie Shanzi and I, and Megs was there as well, we were talking about this, and there apparently I had a very big hot take when it came to this album and another album that we'll get into. But Casket Factory to me just wasn't that great. There was a lot of good tracks on there, like Ghost, Eternal. There's some really great tracks on there. It really, really, really loses steam about halfway through the album for me. And it has, as time has gone on, it's not been one that I revisit often at all. I don't know what it is about this album. It just didn't hit for me in the slightest. But what I do really like about Casket Factory is some of my earliest memories of interacting with Shanzi was through Casket Factory. They put out a deluxe version of the album that initially I did not get when I ordered it, but Shanzi did. And I was still with Carnival Spirits at the time, and Shanzi was someone who was always in the live chat. So, through interacting with him and finding out that he had the deluxe version, and he did have a YouTube channel, I don't think he had any videos on it at the time. I was like, yo, you should upload those bonus tracks onto your channel, because I really wanted to hear them, and he did. So a lot of times when I listen to like Bleed and Blue and Gray and The Painted Man, I just immediately think of Shanzi because I heard him for the first time thanks to him on his channel. So I always like telling that little story because it's like that connection of an old homie. So I have to put Casket Factory down pretty low because it's not very memorable. And in fact, I would even do the same with Casket Maker. I honestly don't even remember what kind of review I gave for these when I drop my reviews. I'm usually pretty generous. A lot of people know that I don't dislike a lot of things very often, but I do think a lot of times I'm overly generous when I do some of my reviews, and I feel like the Casket Maker was one of them where I did that. I don't know what it is about the beats, or just his flow, or whatever it is, it just doesn't quite hit for me. It didn't really like leave its mark for me, and in fact, I feel like I want to move Colton Grundy up now to the B tier just because of how unmemorable Casket Factory and Casket Maker was for me. That I kind of want to move Colton Grundy out of that category. So, jumping into Dead Vulture, I don't know how many people know about this EP. This EP was released at the 2016 Gathering of the Juggalos, the last one that Blaze, Twisted, anybody that was signed to Magic Ninja Entertainment at that time and going forward. It was the last time that they were there. And this album was released there. It comes in a little slim case. There's no credits for the album at all, but it is a fucking banger. Through doing my review, I learned who the producer was. I've had interactions with the producer. In fact, he's become like a really good friend of Gibby Stites and produces a lot of tracks for Gibby Stites. I'm talking about Charlie Beans. These beats and hearing Blaze on these beats, that like synth sound, I don't know what it is. It sounds so fucking good. They sound so good together. And I would have loved to see Blaze work with Charlie Beans more. He did later on Kadaver. He had a track on there that was produced by Charlie Beans. But I just think Dead Vulture is so fucking good. I'm actually going to throw that clear at the top of S tier. I love this EP. It's too short. I just love the fucking sound of this EP a lot. Absolutely. It's one of my most revisited Blaze projects ever. So I would love to see Dead Vulture get like a repress into a proper case and all that, but I doubt it will. It was a Gathering exclusive, and I was actually just watching the interview that Fago Lovers did with Blaze from Hollow Bleed, and Stockwell actually says that this is one of his favorite albums from Blaze as well. And the only really comment Blaze made about it is he doesn't even know what the fuck he was on when he wrote that. So like this, to me, I think Dead Vulture was just kind of he was in like a creative mindset at the time and then just put it out. For those who don't know, Casket Factory and Casket Maker and Dead Vulture, they all came out in 2016. So for me, Dead Vulture was kind of like a wild surprise. I wasn't expecting it at the Gathering, and I wasn't expecting it to sound like that, but I really fucking love it. So I'm putting that motherfucker clear at the top of the list. It's one of my favorite projects from Blaze. And then jumping into Graveyard Greats, I don't want to say this is a greatest hits album. This is kind of his version of Cryptic Collection, his version of Forgotten Freshness. It has a lot of singles like Burn 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 is on there. It's got the title track Dead Vulture on there with the credits that shows you that it was produced by Charlie Beans. It's basically a collection of bonus tracks, singles, and things like that didn't really have like a home outside of the deluxe version of their albums or being released as singles. I think Robin Hood was also I think that was a VIP exclusive single that you could get. Basically, Graveyard Greats was that collection of like exclusive tracks put into one place. So Graveyard Greats for me, when I first listened to it, I thought it was pretty good, but you know, it was one of those things where most of the tracks I had already heard, was already aware of, and this just kind of gave them a home. I think the tracks on there are great. They're not really bad at all, but it was one of those things where the tracks just were, they already had a home somewhere else and they were put here, so it made it more accessible for people. So I'm just going to put it at the top of the C tier because, like, again, the tracks aren't bad. Like, all of the bonus tracks from Casket Factory were on there. Bleed, Black and Gray, Blue and Gray, sorry, and then The Painted Man. So for those who already had the deluxe version, it was kind of like you're listening to a lot of the same songs that you could be listening to when you do a listen through of the album. So yeah. Then jumping into Kadaver, and this is where the hot take I was talking about with Shanzi comes in. I love Kadaver more than I think most people do. How it came up is Shanzi said something about Kadaver and how it just wasn't like a good album from Blaze, he felt. And I was like, really? I like really love Kadaver a lot. I think, honestly, I would say it, again, hot take here, it's better than Casket Factory, and that's what I told him. He's like, what? No, he likes Casket Factory better than Kadaver. I honestly, I feel like, I don't want to be too overly generous by doing this, but I feel like I would probably put this, would I put this at the top of the A tier, or would I just put it at the bottom of the S tier? Like, when I say this, people are going to shit a brick and be like, you're fucking drunk, DC. I feel like Kadaver is kind of on par with One Less G in the Hood. I really do. I just felt like tracks were really good, very well put together. It's Blaze sounding great. I think I'm just going to leave it right there at the top of the A tier. Do I like it more than Gang Rags Reborn, though? Because I think Gang Rags Reborn is pretty good. I might actually do this. I think I like Gang Rags Reborn more than Kadaver. So I didn't listen to any of the albums before going into this review. I mean, in the last week, I listened to the new Clockwork Morgue, which I didn't put on here because it's a collab album, essentially. But I did also listen to Graveyard Greats 2, I listened to Kadaver, and I listened to Graveyard Greats 1 in the last week. So I didn't really go in and do like a proper comparison, and maybe I should have for this. But I think I'm happy moving Gang Rags Reborn up and then letting Kadaver have the top spot on the A tier. And then ending it off because, once again, this is just the artwork for Rules to the Game, the single, because this was one of the songs that they left off when they remade Gang Rags Reborn and then released it as a single. I don't know why the fuck they did that. I was lucky to get myself a copy of this thanks to the homie All Things Juggalo. He met me at the first gathering that I went to, and he's like, this is like a gathering present for you since it's your first. So I actually just took the single and put it in a 2-disc tray with my Gang Rags Reborn CD. So bringing it down to the Graveyard Greats 2. Again, his Cryptic Collection, his Forgotten Freshness. This album is more focused on like the deep cuts. So there are songs on here like Eggplant. I believe it's all the same lyrics, but the beat is different. You got Wishing Well on here. You've got what was the Escape Artist is on here, but they have different beats. If I Fall, which the version of If I Fall on Graveyard Greats 2, I think I like that version way the fuck better than the one that's on Colton Grundy. So like this, like I said, it's more of a deeper cut on his tracks, and it's interesting listening to like the first version or like a different version of them. Same way with fucking Escape Artist. Escape Artist, I really like the beat. For those who don't know, the beat that they use for the like OG version of Escape Artist is actually the beat they ended up using for DJ Clay's Just a Song I Wrote that they put on Psychopathics from Outer Space Part 3. And that beat works really well on Escape Artist. There's some extra like sound effects that they put on Just a Song I Wrote that made that song a little bit more annoying. Like, for those who've listened to it, they know, like, there's that paramedic in the background or nurse or whatever, like, Bobby, open your eyes. And you kind of hear that repeat throughout the whole song. And it gets a little repetitive. But then listening to this like this without that, it gives, you can hear the beat and the piano a little bit more clearly. And I do feel like as I listen to that song, you hear that boom, 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 boom of the piano more clearly. And it's kind of like, it sounds like a kid just sitting at a piano, hitting it over and over and over and over again. So that part does get a little bit annoying, but I thought it was interesting listening to Escape Artist with that beat. I actually like it quite a bit. So I am actually going to take Graveyard Greats, and I'm going to probably stick it maybe in the B tier, right below Colton Grundy. Like, some of the tracks that are on Graveyard Greats are really good, and I kind of like the versions of them better. Like, Eggplants, I kind of like that version a little bit better than the one that ended up on Clockwork Gray. I don't know. It was trippy. I didn't expect to go into that album like that. I really should do my review for that. I don't think I ever reviewed that album last year. It's only been out for a year, and I don't even know if you can still get Graveyard Greats 2. I'll have to look into that. But there you guys go. That is my tier list of all of the Blaze Ya Dead Homie albums. I did not include Drive By on this. I don't know if I'll do that kind of as like the miscellaneous album reviews. But yeah, there you guys go. If you guys agree with me, tell me down below. If you think I'm nuts, tell me down below. And I will try to remember to put the link to this tier list in the description so you can go do one of your own if you would like. If for whatever reason I have forgotten to do that, feel free to roast me in the comments. Motherfucker, where's the link? But yeah, I thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.